Okay, here's a thought to start us off. What if your life's greatest work, I mean, this huge achievement that completely changed human history, what if that also became your biggest regret?
And maybe even like a symbol of how we could destroy ourselves.
Exactly. How do we even begin to grapple with that, with the power of science when, the results are just unimaginable?
It's a heavy question.
It really is. Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This is where we take all your sources, your research, your ideas, and we really try to dig into them, find the most important bits so you feel properly informed.
And today, we are definitely digging deep. We're heading into the fascinating and, really complex world of J. Robert Oppenheimer.
That's right, the theoretical physicist, the guy at the center of Christopher Nolan's big 2023 film, Oppenheimer.
Yeah, and look, this isn't just going to be a movie review.
No, not at all.
We're aiming for a proper deep dive here into the man himself, the history he lived through, and how this movie, this 3-hour historical drama, somehow became this massive blockbuster.
Right, and got everyone talking.
Exactly. We'll unpack how Nolan told the story, the structure of it. We'll get into Oppenheimer's really tough moral questions.
The dilemmas, yeah.
And look at how the film brought these huge historical moments and what they still mean for us back into the spotlight.
So expect some surprising facts, definitely compelling characters, and hopefully a much deeper understanding of why this story, Oppenheimer's story, still hits so hard today.
Okay, so where do we start? The man himself.
Let's do it. The man behind the bomb, J. Robert Oppenheimer. His rise was, tumultuous seems like the right word.
Definitely not straightforward. Even with his obvious genius, it wasn't an easy path.
Think about it. It's 1926. He's only 22, studying quantum physics experimental stuff at Cambridge under Patrick Blackett.
And he's really not doing well. Not intellectually, but personally. He's struggling, right? Anxiety, homesickness.
Yeah, and feeling like he just wasn't cut out for the lab work, the experimental side, which is such a contrast to how brilliant he clearly was theoretically.
It was super tense time for him. And the film shows this so well, that early sort of inner turmoil.
And it leads to that really disturbing incident.
The apple, where he tries to poison Blackett's apple. Driven by, what, frustration? Something deeper, maybe?
And then he takes it back, which is just, wow.
It's a small thing, almost, but in the movie, it feels huge. Like it's foreshadowing the bigger moral fights to come, unleashing something awful and then trying desperately to control it.
Yeah, that fragility, that conflict, it's right there from the start. Sets the whole stage.
It really does. And, it's wild to think how close he came to maybe just breaking down or taking a completely different direction.
Until Niels Bohr steps in.
Right. The legendary physicist, Nobel Prize winner. Oppenheimer looked up to him hugely.
And Bohr sees him, really sees him, and gives him this crucial piece of advice.
Tells him, basically, look, this experimental stuff is making you miserable. Your strength is theory.
Go theoretical. And that sends him off to Göttingen in Germany.
Which was like the place to be for theoretical physics then. And he just takes off, gets his PhD incredibly fast.
So that advice was really the turning point.
Oh, absolutely. His whole career pivots. He starts meeting all the big names. Isidor Rabi, Werner Heisenberg over in Europe, Switzerland.
Right. Establishing himself among the elite.
Yeah, absorbing everything, contributing to quantum mechanics. It really laid all the groundwork for everything that happened next. Turned him from this struggling student into a major player.
And when he comes back to the U.S., he's on a mission, isn't he?
Totally. Teaching at Berkeley, Caltech, building up theoretical physics in America, attracting brilliant students. He created this real hub.
But it wasn't just physics, was it? The film makes that clear. His personal life was messy.
Very messy, which, made him vulnerable down the line.
There's his wife, Catherine Kitty Puning, biologist, ex-communist. She stands by him fiercely later on, which is quite something.
And then the affair with Jean Tatlock.
Right, the psychiatrist. Also connected to the Communist Party, deeply troubled herself. Her apparent suicide later on really hits him hard.
Yeah, adds to the guilt, and it becomes ammunition for his enemies.
So the film's showing these relationships, these early struggles. It's not just background noise. It's key to understanding the conflicts inside and out that really define him. You see the whole person, not just the brain.
Exactly. And all this personal stuff is happening alongside these massive shifts in science that all kind of weaves together.
Like the discovery of nuclear fission in 1938.
Huge moment. Otto Hahn, Fritz Strassmann in Germany, they split the atom.
And for Oppenheimer, this wasn't just abstract anymore, was it?
No way. Fission, splitting a heavy nucleus like uranium, releasing tons of energy, suddenly made weaponization seem terrifyingly real. He instantly got the potential for a chain reaction.
A self-sustaining reaction, yeah. Unleashing unbelievable power.
It went from theory to a potential nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
A race against time, really.
Which leads us right into the war. 1942. Colonel Leslie Groves.
Head of the Manhattan Project. Top secret stuff.
And Groves picks Oppenheimer, which is kind of amazing, isn't it? Given Oppenheimer wasn't really experienced in huge projects like this and had this complicated past.
Yeah, but Groves saw something in him. He recruits this theoretical physicist to lead the Los Alamos lab out in New Mexico.
Mission. Build the bomb before the Nazis.
Because the Germans were working on it too, right? Heisenberg leading their efforts.
The pressure must have been absolutely immense.
Unimaginable. He has to build a team from scratch, pull together these brilliant minds, Robbie, Hans Beth, Edward Teller.
Bring them out to the secret city in the desert.
And collaborate with guys like Fermi and Szilard in Chicago too. It was this massive, secret, incredibly high-stakes effort.
Which brings us to maybe the scariest moment in the whole project. The calculation.
Oh yeah, Edward Teller. Brilliant physicist, but complicated guy.
He comes up with this calculation suggesting the bomb could ignite the atmosphere.
Basically, yeah. Set off a chain reaction in the nitrogen and, well, destroy the world.
And this wasn't just like a crazy idea. It was based on the physics.
It was a theoretical possibility based on what they knew or thought they knew.
Yeah.
The stakes were suddenly existential.
I can't even imagine carrying that. What did Oppenheimer do?
He was desperate. He went to Einstein. Apparently, though, the film maybe plays with the timeline a bit there.
Right.
And, crucially, he got Hans Bethe, who was super meticulous, to check Teller's math. Really check it.
And the result?
After days of agonizing work, they concluded the chances were near zero.
Near zero, not zero.
Exactly. Near zero. It just hammers home what they were dealing with. They weren't just building a weapon. They were messing with forces that could, theoretically, end everything.
And even putting that fear aside, there was tension within the team already, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah. Especially with Teller. He was pushing his idea for a hydrogen bomb, the H-bomb. Much more powerful.
And felt like he was being ignored.
Pretty much. He even threatened to leave the project.
But Oppenheimer kept him.
Yeah. Oppenheimer knew Teller was brilliant, even if difficult. He persuaded him to stay, focus on the A-bomb for now, but you can see the cracks forming, right? The ideological splits, the personal stuff.
That would come back to haunt him later.
Big time. It all foreshadows the post-war drama.
Okay, so they get past that hurdle, and then comes the Trinity test.
July 16th, 1945. New Mexico desert. The culmination of everything. The first nuclear explosion.
And Nolan's depiction of this, wow, people really talked about this sequence.
He insisted on practical effects, not CGI, for the explosion itself.
Which must have been incredibly difficult.
Hugely. They built these massive miniatures, big-agers they called them, used forced perspective to make things look enormous.
And special lenses.
Custom IMAX lenses for macro shots to try and visualize the quantum stuff, the energy waves, using real-world imagery. Gives it this visceral, terrifying reality.
And the sound, or the lack of it initially.
That silence. Right before the blast hits. It's so powerful. You just see the awe and the terror on their faces. Then the sound washes over you. It really conveys the weight of what they've done.
Critics loved that part, didn't they? Said it was almost quieter, more harrowing than expected.
Yeah, the build-up, the tension. Apparently there was one scene where people in the cinema were just squirming. The anticipation was so intense.
So Trinity is a success in terrifying terms. What happens next?
Well, Germany had already surrendered by then, back in May 45.
But the project continues.
All right, the focus shifts to Japan ending the war in the Pacific. Oppenheimer himself believed using the bomb would actually save lives in the long run, avoid a massive invasion.
Not everyone on the team agreed by that point.
No, some questioned if it was still necessary. But the decision came from the top. President Truman.
He orders the bombings, Hiroshima, August 6th, Nagasaki, August 9th.
Little boy on Hiroshima, fat man on Nagasaki. And Japan surrenders days later, August 15th. World War II is over.
Now, the film makes a very specific choice here about not showing the devastation in Japan.
Yeah, it's deliberate. Nolan treats it as this profound absence, an indictment by silence.
Which got mixed reactions, right?
Definitely. Some critics thought it was powerful, made you imagine the horror. Others, especially in Japan, felt it kind of downplayed the human cost, maybe even glorified the bomb by focusing on the creators.
It's a tough ethical line to walk in filmmaking.
For sure. It forces you, the viewer, to think about what's not being shown and why.
And this is where Oppenheimer's internal struggle really comes to the forefront. Publicly, he's a hero. Privately.
He's crushed by guilt, famously saying he felt he had blood on his hands.
Which leads to that incredibly tense meeting with Truman.
Yeah, pivotal scene. Oppenheimer tries to convey this moral weight, says the blood on my hands lined directly to the president.
And Truman's reaction?
Not sympathetic. Basically tells him off, dismisses his concerns about stopping atomic development, and says, look, the decision was mine. I take responsibility.
Oof. That must have been crushing for Oppenheimer.
Absolutely. The film portrays it as this huge turning point. His disillusionment really sets in. He shifts from being the builder to wanting control, wanting limits.
Now, there's a little historical detail there about Truman calling him a crybaby, right? The film shows it happening in the meeting.
It does, yeah, for dramatic effect, probably.
Yeah.
Historians say Truman actually wrote that in a private letter about Oppenheimer, like a year later. Called him a crybaby scientist.
Ah, okay. So the sentiment was real, just maybe not said to his face right then.
Exactly. It shows how film adapts history sometimes, but the core tension, Truman's dismissal of Oppenheimer's angst, that's accurate.
So the war ends, but Oppenheimer's battles are far from over. He moves into this advisory role.
Yeah, with the new Atomic Energy Commission, the AEC, supposedly a civilian agency controlling nuclear stuff.
But he becomes controversial pretty quickly.
Because he opposes developing the hydrogen bomb, the H-bomb, Teller's big idea.
Why?
He thought it would just escalate the arms race with the Soviets, make nuclear war more likely. But this is the start of the Cold War, remember?
Right, and Teller's H-bomb idea is getting traction again.
Exactly. So Oppenheimer's opposition puts him on a collision course with powerful people who see him as naive, maybe even dangerous. He goes from hero to liability.
And one of those powerful people is Louis Strauss.
Oh yeah, the AEC chairman. The film really portrays him as having this deep personal resentment towards Oppenheimer. A lot of the black and white parts of the film are from Strauss's perspective, showing his side of things.
What was Strauss's beef, exactly?
A few things. Oppenheimer had publicly shot down Strauss's worries about exporting radioactive isotopes. Strauss saw that as a security risk.
Okay.
And after the Soviets tested their own bomb, Oppenheimer argued for talking to them for openness to avoid an arms race. Strauss thought that was madness in the Cold War climate, maybe even leaning towards treason.
Wow. Deep suspicion there.
And then there's this really key misunderstanding, according to the story. Strauss saw Oppenheimer talking to Einstein at Princeton back in '47.
And thought Oppenheimer was bad-mouthing him.
Exactly. He thought Oppenheimer was turning Einstein against him. But the film suggests, and historical accounts too, that Oppenheimer was actually talking about his fear of having started that world-ending chain reaction, that existential dread again.
So it was a complete misinterpretation fueled by Strauss's own insecurity.
Seems likely. Shows how personal feelings and paranoia can just poison things at the highest levels.
And this all builds up to the 1954 security hearing.
The Kangaroo Court, as it's often called.
Right.
Strauss secretly orchestrates it.
The goal being?
To revoke Oppenheimer's Q clearance, his top-secret security clearance.
Yeah.
Without it, he'd lose all his influence on nuclear policy, silence his dissenting voice.
And they went after him hard.
Ruthlessly. Dragged up all his past associations, his relationship with Gene Tatlock, twisted testimonies from colleagues.
Teller's testimony was particularly bad, wasn't it?
Devastating. Teller didn't outright call him disloyal, but he expressed doubts, implied he was a security risk, which was basically throwing him under the bus.
But Katie Oppenheimer fought back. Emily Blunt's performance here was widely praised.
Oh, she was fierce. Defended him vigorously, showed incredible strength under intense pressure.
So what was the verdict?
The board didn't find him disloyal. They couldn't, really. But they did revoke his clearance, based on doubts about his character, his judgment. It wrecked his public image, ended his government career. A huge blow.
But the story doesn't quite end there for Strauss, does it? There's a kind of payback later on.
Yeah, it's pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
1959, Strauss is up for confirmation as Secretary of Commerce. Should be straightforward.
Right.
David L. Hill, another physicist from the Manhattan Project, testifies unexpectedly. And he lays it all out. Strauss's personal vendetta against Oppenheimer, how he manipulated the hearing.
Wow. Publicly calling him out.
Exactly. And it worked. Strauss's nomination gets voted down, narrowly. And guess who cast the deciding vote?
Who?
A young Senator, John F. Kennedy.
No way.
Yeah, a pretty stunning public rebuke for Strauss.
And did Oppenheimer get any kind of, I don't know, vindication?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Partial. Belated. In 1963, President Lyndon B. Johnson gave him the Enrico Fermi Award.
Which is a big deal in nuclear science.
The biggest. It was recognition of his scientific contribution, even if it couldn't undo the damage of the hearing. A symbolic gesture. Maybe offered some peace.
But the film ends on that ambiguous, unsettling note, doesn't it? That last chat with Einstein.
Yeah, that final conversation. It's not historically documented, it's Nolan's creation. But it's powerful.
Oppenheimer saying, "I believe we did," about starting the chain reaction.
Chilling. Nolan said he wanted troubling reverberations. Leaves you thinking, doesn't it? About unintended consequences.
Definitely. Okay, let's shift gears slightly and talk about the film itself as, a piece of cinema. How did this thing become such a monster hit?
Well, a lot comes down to Nolan's direction, obviously. The structure, for one.
That non-linear thing jumping between timelines.
Exactly. Weaving the color story of Oppenheimer's rise and the black and white of Strauss's perspective in the hearings. Someone called it Trojan horsing a biopic into a thriller.
That's a great description. It really does keep you hooked, even though you kind of know how it ends.
Yeah, jumping around builds suspense. Shows the consequences looming before they hit.
And the use of color versus black and white wasn't just style, right? It meant something.
Definitely. Color was mostly Oppenheimer's subjective view, his world, his feelings. Black and white was more objective, often Strauss's view, the cold political reality. It helps you navigate the different layers of the story.
And we already touched on the practical effects, especially for Trinity. That commitment to realism.
It's classic Nolan, isn't it? Building those huge miniatures, using special lenses to visualize physics concepts without CGI. It just gives it this weight, this texture.
Cillian Murphy said the pace was insane.
Yeah, but the editor, Jennifer Lame, did an incredible job making 3 hours feel dynamic, almost making you forget how long it is. You're just swept up in it.
And the performances. We have to talk about the acting. Murphy first.
Phenomenal. It just absolutely carries the film, the physical transformation, the quiet intensity. He just became Oppenheimer. Totally deserved the Oscar.
And Robert Downey Jr. as Strauss. People were calling it his best work in years.
Easily. He showed such range, that charm on the surface, but the bitterness and ruthlessness underneath nailed the two-faced nature, as you said. Another deserved Oscar.
Emily Blunt is Kitty, too. Fierce.
So good. Especially in those hearing scenes, you really felt her loyalty and her frustration. Got the nomination, rightly so.
And even the supporting roles were stacked. Matt Damon as Groves.
Yeah, that unlikely alliance with Oppenheimer worked so well. Damon brought this sort of gruff pragmatism. And he was useful for the audience, too, right? Asking the questions we might have about the science.
Florence Pugh as Jean Tatlock, too, a smaller role but crucial.
Absolutely. Showed that personal vulnerability and the political danger he was courting.
And it's wild that some of these huge stars took pay cuts and didn't even know their roles when they signed on.
Speaks volumes about Nolan, doesn't it? They just wanted to be part of it.
The score, too, Ludwig Göransson, it's almost nonstop.
It's so integral. Over 2.5 hours of music. And Nolan's idea to use the solo violin for Oppenheimer. Genius.
No.
Because a violin can be beautiful, romantic 1 second, and then utterly screeching, neurotic, horrifying the next. Just like Oppenheimer's journey, it mirrors the whole arc origin story, heist, courtroom drama. Oscar winner there, too.
All this adds up to this massive box office success, nearly $1 billion worldwide. For a 3-hour, R-rated historical drama.
It's incredible. It beat Bohemian Rhapsody to become the biggest biopic ever. Beat Nolan's own Dunkirk for a WWII film. It proved audiences will show up for smart, complex adult drama.
And then there was Barbenheimer.
Yeah, the cultural moment nobody saw coming. Released the same day as Barbie.
And people went to see both, often on the same day.
Tens of thousands booked tickets for the double feature. It was bizarre but brilliant. Even Murphy said that's cinema's gain. Show there's room for totally different kinds of blockbusters.
Critically, it was a smash, too. Huge scores on Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic.
Universal acclaim, basically. Critics raved about everything. Screenplay, acting, visuals. Called it a masterpiece, jolting. One of Nolan's best, for sure.
And it actually had real-world impact, didn't it? Beyond the cinema.
Yeah, that's fascinating. The attention on the Trinity test site actually spurred new efforts to update RACA, the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act.
To help people affected by the radiation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially the downwinders in New Mexico. People living near the test site who suffered health problems for generations and were often overlooked. The film brought their plight back into the conversation, led to real legislative pushes.
That's amazing. Shows the power of film sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, with any historical film, There were debates about accuracy.
Little things like the wrong number of stars on the flag.
Yeah, stuff like that. Some bigger omissions, too, like maybe not enough focus on the Native American families displaced for Los Alamos.
Understandable criticisms, and some conversations maybe didn't happen exactly as shown.
Right, like maybe Oppenheimer talked chain reactions with someone else, not Einstein exactly then. Films often condense or tweak things for drama.
And that Kyoto detail.
Yeah.
About why it was spared.
Oh, yeah. The film suggests it was personal for Secretary Stimson, like a honeymoon spot.
But the reality was more strategic.
Historians say yes. Stimson, worried bombing Kyoto, a cultural center, would push post-war Japan towards the Soviets. Geopolitics, not sentimentality. Again, a slight tweak for narrative effect.
So, summing it all up then, from his early anxieties leading the Manhattan Project, the bombings, the guilt, the persecution, Oppenheimer the film is way more than just a history lesson.
Oh, absolutely. It's this deep character study, a thriller, really, and just a huge cinematic achievement that somehow got the whole world talking about physics and morality.
It really proved that audiences are still hungry for big, complex ideas on screen, even 3 hours long, R-rated.
Yeah, the power of a great story well told.
And it leaves you with that final, really unsettling thought, doesn't it? That conversation with Einstein.
Are we ever really in control once we unleash these world-changing forces? Or did Oppenheimer, as he feared, become destroyer of worlds, starting something we can't stop?
And how do we apply that today? With AI, genetic editing, all the new frontiers, how do we balance progress and responsibility?
That's the question, isn't it? The question the film leaves hanging in the air. Something for all of us to keep thinking about long after the credits roll.